in Genesis 41, the story continues. 2 years passed, and the king had a dream. He dreamt that up out of the Nile came 7 cows that ate on the riverbank, and they were fat. But then out came 7 thin, ugly cows, and they ate up the fat cows. The king went back to sleep. He had a second dream, and in the second dream, 7 heads of fat wheat came up from one stem, and then 7 thin heads of wheat came and ate up that wheat. Well, when the king woke up, he was very disturbed, so he called all the wise men and the magicians in to ask them to tell him what his dreams meant. But no one was able to tell him what they meant. And this is when the cupbearer remembered, "Oh, Joseph." And he said to the king, "Do you remember when you were angry with me and the baker and you put us in jail? Well, both of us had dreams, and at the same time there was this man in jail, and he was able to tell us what our dreams meant. In fact, everything that he said ended up happening exactly as he said it." So the king called for Joseph to come. And so they had Joseph cleaned up and shaved and put new clothes on him and sent him in to the king. And the king said, "I have had a dream too, and no one can tell me what they mean." And then he began to explain to Joseph about the 7 fat cows and the thin cows eating them, and then the 7 grains of wheat and the thin wheat eating them. And Joseph said, "I cannot interpret this dream, but God can." And then he told the king. It's happened twice because it's certain this is going to be what will occur. And so God is telling you these things because he's preparing you, and it's going to happen soon. So the 2 dreams mean the same thing. The 7 cows and 7 wheat represent that 7 years. And so you're going to have 7 years of good food available. That's what the fat cows and the fat wheat represent. But the thin cows and the thin wheat, those represent that there will be no food, there will be a famine. And so this is what's going to happen, and it's going to happen soon. So you need to get a wise leader put in place so that food can be gathered and saved for 7 years, for the 7 years that the famine will come. And the king said, "Oh, you are the wisest of all men. God has surely given this to you." And he really liked what Joseph had to say. So he told Joseph, "I am going to put you in charge of all of Egypt under me. No one will be greater than you but me." And he took off his ring and he gave it to Joseph. And then he put him in fine clothes and gave him a gold necklace and put him in a chariot and had him riding around where everyone was shouting. And they were saying, "Make way." Well, Joseph was about 30 years old when this happened. And the king even gave him a wife. And so he set out and he began riding out all over Egypt, driving around and telling the people, "You need to gather the food, you need to save the food." And they gathered so much wheat that they no longer could count it because it was more than the sand in the sea. It was immeasurable. And Joseph felt so blessed. He then had 2 sons with his wife, and with his first son he named him Manasseh. And he said, "Because God has let me forget my troubles." His second son, he named him Ephraim, because he said, "God has helped me." Well, the 7 years passed, and the famine began, and there was no more food in the land. So Joseph made the food available so that people could come and purchase it. And from all the nations, people were coming to Egypt so that they could get food from Egypt because they had saved their food. May God honor the telling of his word. It's pretty amazing, the journey that Joseph went on. from being sold into slavery to being next to the king and leadership. What is it that Joseph did that enabled him to be placed where he was placed to do what he did? What did Joseph say about God? How did he honor God? And how did he honor the people? It's so important to be in the Word, to be with Jesus, and be transformed. Shalom, y'all.